afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Coram and Ed Carson with a breakdown of the action in today's session, Tuesday, June 18th, where it was a relatively quiet day ahead of the Wednesday holiday this week. And we're still seeing the Nasdaq and S&P 500 at all-time high levels and starting to look pretty extended, Ed.
Yeah, especially the Nasdaq. I want to take a look at three stocks where we're moving today or setting up: Elf Beauty, Goldman Sachs, and Granite Construction.
Okay, we'll get to those three stocks, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. Today, the NASDAQ up just ever so slightly, a fractional gain today. So pretty much holding pat, narrow trading range throughout the day and still eyeing that 18,000 level to the upside. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 up 0.25% today, getting close to 5,500. Then we have the Dow up almost 0.2%, continuing to battle around that 50-day moving average. And then small caps, the Russell 2000 up about 0.25% as well, coming off highs and looking like it's bumping up its head against the 50-day line, Ed. But we've been very focused on the technology sector as of late with this outperformance by the NASDAQ and mega cap tech stocks in particular. So give me your thoughts on what you're seeing on the index level here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Nasdaq looks great. The only problem is that it's been going so strong. I mean, it's hard to be, it's not a, it's hard to be critical like that. It's been acting very well. Strong performance caps, of course. The one issue here is that the Nasdaq is more than 8% above its 50-day line, and so that just raises the risk that you'll get a pullback. You can get more extreme, but especially when you get over 10%, it really becomes an issue. But it also raises the risk that the pullback would be larger. Like at this point, like a pullback to the 21-day line, you wouldn't enjoy that, because you wouldn't know that it's going to bounce back if it fell like that. So that's even just something to the 21-day line. It's already starting to be. You could imagine certain volatile names falling 2 times, 3 times as much, and so you can put that mentally. So it's just something to watch. Ideally, it would move sideways or just gradually pull back a little bit. But you just don't know. It's just something to watch as investors consider, because do I want to add exposure, especially in the tech AI chip space? Some of those names have been flashing buy signals, but it's just something to consider as you're monitoring your portfolio.
Absolutely. Okay, let's also take a look at the S&P 500, which has been strong lately, but not quite as extended as the NASDAQ in terms of where it stands versus its 50-day line. We're about 5.1% above that level. So this isn't, pushing 8-9%, but we're still getting to those elevated levels. And I mean, you can even just see here visually on the chart how those various moving averages are getting stretched, are angling higher, and are spreading out. So really underscoring the strength of the advance recently.
Yeah, and the S&P is just on the edge of extended, but not like the Nasdaq. Again, showing a lot of strength the last several weeks, of course.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that we're gonna short the market here or
No.
go to cash or get bearish. It just raises the odds. If you look at the ebbs and flows of the market, even in strong bull trends, you eventually get those pullbacks. So it's just good to be aware in terms of timing of new buys, what sectors those new buys are in, as you were mentioning, Ed, and just how you are managing your portfolio. It's just good to know what could potentially be around the corner. We could continue to go up. We don't know exactly what the pullback will be like if and when we get it. But again, just good to know. And next on our list, Ed, let's take a look at RSP. This is the equal weighted S&P 500 ETF. It looks like we got some ever so slight outperformance here today versus SPY.
Just a little bit. I mean, we saw, just a smidge. You'd like to see that some more strength in a lot of these other areas. There's a lot of areas where it's like they've been pulling back, but it's always been, if we could just get a little more strength, they'd look pretty good. I mean, they wouldn't look so bad. And if they weaken a little more, ooh, that wouldn't look so good. Yeah, just need to see some more strength. Nice to see it above the 50-day line, but would definitely need to see a lot more.
Hmm. And I know something our senior market strategist, Mike Webster, has pointed out is, and I'm sure some others, but that it would be great to see underneath the surface, perhaps those mega cap techs take a little bit of a break, a well-deserved rest, and to see other stocks get the baton passed to them and start powering higher. What do you think about what we could see or what we are seeing underneath the surface?
Yeah, I mean, it's at that right on the other side. I mean, you could see one strong day, and all of a sudden it would look, oh wow, and you could imagine there's a lot of stocks that are setting up. I mean, and we'll look at a couple that are right on the edge of buy zones, from some areas. You can see how that would be there again, but it really wouldn't take much for this to weaken off. So it's just something we're watching, and it's just an odd situation with the Nasdaq being close to extended. Is can we have, ideally we'd have this rotation. The Nasdaq sort of pauses and everything goes underneath, and it just, we just have to take the market as it comes, even though we'd also like to paint out this dream scenario where it just goes up every day. And we just have, but we have to be watching for those things. And yeah, and QQEW, the equal weight for the Nasdaq 100. I mean, these are still big caps, so we're not talking about little folks here, but it's right by record highs. And again, there's a lot of growth stocks that are acting sort of like this, and they're right there. You can also imagine that if the Nasdaq sold off 3%, you could imagine a lot that this will come back. And so just like breakouts, it might be fine in the long run, but if you're buying something that goes just into a buy zone and then it comes down, and probably, there's a good chance that it falls far more than the Nasdaq, that would be where the trouble is. But this is setting up very nicely. It's a good proxy for growth. It's not extended. It's just those mega caps and a few names, some of the AI chips that need to take a bit of a break.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll have to see what we get. Just real quick thoughts here on IWM. This represents the Russell 2000. It's been lagging.
It's been lagging. It needs to get above the 50-day line. It just take a smidge to do that, but we've been hoping for that for the last several months, really.
Yeah, exactly. So we won't hold our breath or our breadth. Okay, now let's take a look at XLF. This represents the financials. We'll look at a financial today, perhaps getting to an area where things might be interesting in terms of the rotation, Ed, back to financials, maybe.
Yeah, and especially if the mega caps took a break, you could see that the RS line might be able to improve. That's one issue with a lot of these things, that with the Nasdaq and the S&P going up so strong, anything just sort of moving sideways is seen as deteriorating RS. It's not like it's doing that badly. So if there were a rotation, you could imagine the RS line could, improve pretty rapidly. But yes, there's a lot of things that look like just on the edge of being interesting.
Okay. And let's take a look at XLI. This represents the industrials. Same picture here, it seems.
Same picture here. We, some aerospace names in particular are looking interesting. Just needs to get above a little bit of areas here.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why we're looking at these areas is because of the strength in technology. It's not going to last forever. We want to see maybe if there is some sort of rotation, what might those areas of new strength be? And again, that doesn't mean that we're going to all of a sudden dump technology stocks, but it's always good to just see what else is out there, shaping up and setting up. So
yeah, shaping up, because you don't want to be like, 3 or 4 strong days and say XLI is at 128 and all these other names have been flying and say, oh wow, those industrials are looking good, let me chase that. Yeah, you want to be looking at them now.
Yes. Okay. Well, powering the market higher, chips, definitely. And here's a look at SMH up another 1.6% today, looking very strong here, Ed. And Nvidia, a big component here, no surprise.
Yeah, it's the largest component. A lot of the other big components in this are just looking very similar. I do have a position in SMH, but yeah, this is extended. It's hard to find too many chip makers that are in position. This is just one issue. I think looking at Nvidia in particular, that's just like, this is getting to a point where it's like 36, 37% above the 50-day line. It has gotten a little bit more than that a couple of times, and those would be 20-year highs. So it's done that a couple of times in the last year, but it's getting up there. So that's just something to note. Again, that doesn't mean horrible, but it could mean you see a decent pullback at some point. It's just something to keep in mind as a possibility. And if that comes down, you could see a lot of other things come down, and it all depends on how the pace of it is, if it's a rotation, if it's the broad market, but definitely something that investors should be aware of. Obviously, just been tremendous. This had a new, this hit the market cap 3.34. That became number one. I think it would have been teasing with things. There it is now. It is past Apple and Microsoft. It is the world's most valuable company. So that's just an amazing run it's had since late 2022.
Yeah. So it's official now. And I do have a position in this stock, full disclosure. So we'll have to see what Nvidia does and how that impacts the overall market from here. We'll be watching very closely. Okay, let's take a look at some notable stocks from today's session. Here's Elf Beauty with a beautiful looking breakout here, Ed, up over 9%, some above average volume and clearing that round number of 200. We know those round numbers are often psychological levels for investors and a powerful day for the stock.
Yeah, really strong move, just gradually, gain momentum. It's a little extended now. This is why you want to be prepared ahead of time. There was plenty of time when you could have bought it when it was sort of in the middle of that buy zone. Could have bought it, a few days ago if you wanted to, breaking the downtrend. So there's been opportunities to buy it. Maybe it's a little stretched now. You drew the line by the relative strength line. It's not at a new high for the consolidation. Anything in a consolidation
Yeah.
is basically as a lagging, but it's at the highest levels in several months, clearing this handle. So that's pretty strong area right here. This has just been a huge winner. It's taken a break. It took a break a few months ago. It's a little bit, but maybe it's ready for another run after having a decent sized pullback here. Still a huge earnings winner here.
Yes, it is. And something that we do look at are the depth of the bases. So the depth here, 32%, that prior base that you were talking about, depth of 37%. We also did get a handle that formed here for the current base that made the last base breakout a little tricky there, arguably. So not flawless, but perhaps some spot corrector covering the blemishes here for Elf Beauty. But again, a notable breakout today. Let's take a look at GS. We looked at XLF. So here's a look at Goldman Sachs, which is performing much better, I would say, than the broad financial sector. So walk us through this chart, Ed.
Yeah, it was a really nice move here. Just got rebounding from the 50-day line a couple days ago. Got above the 21-day line. It's right on the cusp of a buy point here. You could probably use the high from a few days. You could have used today. You could have used today to do that. The high from a few days ago of 457.64. If you drew a less tight trend line, that would pretty much coincide with the 4057.64. But it certainly could have been actionable today from the lines that you were drawing. Nice action here. The financials had a little bit of pullback. We saw that with the XLF ETF, which Goldman Sachs is a big part of. And but maybe it's bouncing back here. It's probably on track to have a flat base after this week. Already has a tight pattern from a few weeks that's showing the same buy point. So just showing nice action here. Just showing the kind of pause you'd expect. The volume was dried up on the way down. Showed a lot of nice action here.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we like these pullback buys, getting in early with the bounce off of the 50-day or a retake of a shorter term moving average before you get to a new price high. So either as an add-on opportunity for those who were buying earlier this spring, or a new position if you want to get some exposure outside of technology, looks compelling here, Ed. So thanks for walking us through that. Let's now take a look at GVA. This is Granite Construction. A similar move here, but after a bounce off of the 50-day line, we had it tighten up for a few days and now clearing that tight area. What are you seeing on the chart, Ed?
Yeah, this is basically one of those things you could have bought it today. You could also wait for just that tiny move more. I mean, depending on how you want to go at it. There is this. This is a flat base that came right down to the top of the prior flat base. It is a flat base on a weekly chart, so this is a base on base formation. You know, it's a little bit building, so it's just sort of building a little steps here. Heavy construction has been very strong. Look, there's been a lot of tailwinds for construction, like roads and other things. There's the revenue growth has accelerated for several quarters, from minus 14% up to 20%. Solid earnings growth in that stretch. So there's a lot to like about this. You know, the sector, the fundamentals, the
Right.
chart is showing there. So, you know, it often is a stair stepper where it bounces off the 50-day line, but it's not that far from that level still. So, you know, definitely, again, like Goldman Sachs, an area that you could see as, you know, as a way outside of tech, but with some solid tailwinds in there, not just a slow grower, but like a real growth out there to play with.
Mm-hmm. And this was, I believe, our stock of the day today.
It is. It probably just hasn't gotten in there because it just published a few minutes ago. So
Just
if you clicked on
published.
that for the sector, you would get to the get to that section. But yeah, we just published it a few minutes ago. Just a nice action here. So it was actionable or right below early entry, and then another point or so for the actual official breakout. All of those are valid, you know, for investors.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed. And thanks everyone for watching. Coming up live at 5 p.m. Eastern today, 2 p.m. Pacific. Stay tuned on our YouTube channel because we have our weekly swing trader status update show this week, hosted by Mike Webster and Chris Gessel, giving you the rundown of the market action from a swing trading perspective. With the Nasdaq getting extended, how are they handling the ebbs and flows of the portfolio with this active platform? Well, you'll have to check it out live on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, we'll also post the video to investors.com/videos, just like this one. Thanks again, Ed. And we hope everyone enjoys their holiday day off in remembrance of Juneteenth. And then we'll see you back here on Thursday. Thanks, everyone.